Today on the We Invested podcast, we have Eric Miller. He is the co-owner of Econologics Financial Advisors and the chief financial advisor. Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to learn more about, this company that you've built and created. But before we get started, would you mind letting the people know where they can find you on the internet as far as your website or social media?
Yeah, you can just go to Econologics Financial Advisors or Econologics. We have a YouTube channel called the Financial Beast channel, and
Mm.
those would probably be the two main ways that you can connect with us.
Awesome, man. And let's talk a little bit about that YouTube channel, man. That sounds interesting. I like the
Yeah,
name of it. The
yeah.
Financial Beast, man. What is that about? How did you get started in the YouTube world? Like what led you to that path?
Well, I think the Financial Beast, where we came up with that. I mean, honestly, I was working with one of our clients, and I was looking at his financials, and he was like, he had a business that was probably doing like, I don't know, like $4 or $5 million, and that's pretty good for like it was a veterinary client,
Mm-hmm.
and he had paid off his house. He had, tons of cash. He was like 30 something years old. He was completely out of debt, and I was just like, God, this dude's a beast. And that's where it came from. It was like, so I kind of, from there, I was like, what does it take to like become a financial beast? Like, what are those things that you would need? And really, when I say financial beast, it's just someone that is like, you talked a little bit about mindsets, like someone that just says, you know what, I can complain about the outside economy, but honestly, um, I am in control of my own personal economy. And that's what a financial beast actually is. Someone that feels like they're in control of their own personal economy.
Absolutely, man. And it sounds like the main theme of that is, taking accountability for, the outcome of your life, man, and what we can control and what we can improving where we can.
Yeah.
But a little bit earlier we were talking about Florida and the beautiful weather out there and talking a little bit about Reno. But I typically start my interviews off asking people, where they're from and where they grew up. So, would you mind explaining and talking a little bit about that?
No, grew up in Ohio. So I was born and raised a Buckeye, and uh, really always liked the personal finance area. Didn't know much about it. Would always like read the paper and be like, I don't understand this stuff, but something tells me I probably should know a little bit about it. Coming from Ohio, you're either going to be like a teacher, a coach, law enforcement, or something like that. And that really wasn't what I wanted my game to be. Got fortunate enough to move down to Florida, started a financial planning company, and we did it in 2008. I don't know how old you are, but
Oh,
2008 was probably not the best year to start a financial planning company at that point in time. Everyone was paralyzed in fear, and we just said, look, let's just do it. I wanted to help entrepreneurs. I wanted to help business owners because I knew that they were those kinds of people had the mindset that they're in charge of their outcome,
mm-hmm.
and I wanted to be able to help those people. And we selected a niche that I work primarily with healthcare professionals. So a lot of veterinarians, a lot of dentists, physical therapists, optometrists, people that really weren't born to be business people. They wanted to be healthcare people, but they need a lot of financial help. So that's where we kind of geared our business towards.
Absolutely, man. And that's a huge indicator of or a huge piece of the recipe to be successful in business and to be a successful entrepreneur is to lock in and find a niche.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting that in the financial space, you decided to focus on the healthcare space and helping healthcare professionals. So like how did you come up with that idea? Was it trial and error or is it something that was like near and dear to your heart, so to speak?
Well, I come from a healthcare family, so I knew that these people, um, their purpose isn't to make a bunch of money. It is to help people. And when I started
Absolutely.
working with healthcare practitioners, these people go to school for 7 years, man, to learn how to be, a doctor in some field. But they never were taught about personal finances at
Mm-hmm.
all. And so I saw that they were very much underserved. And that really is what kind of led me to want to work with them and just help make sure. Because look, when they got their money right, they can expand, they can see more patients, they can help more people, they can hire more people. And I think that's all part and parcel of what my role is to make sure they feel confident and in control of their money, because it's not easy right now. It's just not easy for a lot of these practitioners. And when you don't know how to control money, then bad things can happen. So that's why I got into this niche. But you're right, it is important, because that's one thing I learned really early on. Like if I'm going to help a veterinarian or a dentist or somebody or a doctor with their finances, then I got to know something about their biggest investment. And their biggest investment isn't a 401k, it's not their house, it's their business. That's their biggest investment. And so I had to learn, like, what drives revenue, how do you increase the value of these things,
Hmm.
how do you get this thing prepared to sell for maximum value, which is what a lot of business owners don't do. They own a business, but really all they do is they have a job, and they never look at it as an investment. And I try to steer people towards that concept.
Absolutely. So, in your own words, what is Econologics Financial Advisors?
So simply put, if you look at, I'll give you the breakdown of the word econologics, because you're like, what does this word mean? It's like, good God. Really and simply, if you look at the term economy, it really boils down to the original derivation of that word means the management of a household. Because you look at like a nation itself, or like a culture, right? And what is it made up of? It's made up of families, the family unit. It's made up of households, and the condition of that country is really representative of the condition of all the households in that in that country. So the word economy actually meant the management of a household, like learning how to manage the household, the finances of a household. And then ology means study of, and then ecos means practices and skills. So the word basically means the practices and skills, the study of the practices and skills of the management of the household, financially speaking. That's where the word came up with. Probably need to change it because it's kind of complex and I got to explain that all the time, but it's kind of a cool sounding word.
Absolutely.
But that's really all. My job is to make sure people realize that their household should be looked at as like the parent company. Like in corporate America, you'll see that a lot of these big corporations have parent companies. Your household's the parent company, and your job is to fortify financially that parent company so that it can operate in a manner that has multiple income sources, is free of all bad debt, and is protected from taxes, inflation, and lawsuits. So that my job is to make sure people do that.
Absolutely, man. And me personally, I like the name.
All
Think
right,
it's a
well,
dope
good.
name, and it's a good
Well,
name.
we'll keep it then.
You mentioned that you've always been interested in personal finance. So I want to ask and kind of understand how exactly you got started in this industry. What was the initial spark for you that let you know that you wanted to pursue this industry as a career?
I mean, I don't know how old you are. Do you ever remember the back in the day we had papers called the USA Today? You ever remember the USA Today paper? All right. They had these like different color sections. Sports was red, entertainment was purple, and then money was green. And I used to read that open up that area, and I was like, you know what? I probably should know something about this, but I don't understand any of these words. I don't know what all these ticker symbols and all this stuff means. And then one day I just made a decision, I want to work with a financial company. And then I went to a library, because back in the day you had to go to the library to get on the internet. All right. And there was a there was an opening for a position for a mutual fund company in Columbus, Ohio. And I went and applied. Didn't I told the guy, I was like, I don't know anything about personal finance. I don't know anything about finances at all. I was brutally honest, which I think there's some value in doing that. And I got the job, and I just kind of learned from there. But really it's been my own self-study on the financial markets, on basic principles, and that's really where my education came from, and working with a lot of clients as well.
That's incredible, man. And What would you say are some of those lessons that you learned early on working for that first, I believe you said mutual fund company? What were
Yeah.
some things that you learned and took away from that experience?
Well, I certainly learned the traditional financial the model of what people are told what to do with their money. And that's the first thing that I learned is like, hey, everyone's telling me I need to take like a percentage of what I take home and put it into retirement plan accounts. That's what I did. I did it like everybody else was told to do. But then as an employee, I thought that was a good idea. As I morphed into ownership and that kind of a journey, I realized, you can continue to do that, but it's going to just delay the process of your financial independence. Because honestly, the S&P 500 index fund is not going to make you wealthy, right? Putting money in a 401k plan is not going to make you wealthy. Owning a business, uh, getting that thing to expand, real estate, those kinds of things are going to create a lot of wealth for you. So I shifted my mindset over time as far as what I learned. But that was certainly one concept that I learned early on. It's not a bad habit to have. You should take a percentage of what you make and set it aside. But I think what people are being told, especially business owners, is woefully incomplete compared to what they should do.
So when you were in the process of making that transition from being a 9 to 5 employee into ownership and into becoming an entrepreneur and running your own business and operating your own company, I mean, how was that transition for you? Were you ever intimidated? Were you excited, apprehensive? What emotions were you feeling as you were transitioning?
Well, I had a mentor, so I joined a firm as an employee, but there was always the idea that I was going to eventually become, a co-owner and a partner, which I did. And then there was a blow up of ownership, and then I kind of took over with another partner. And I mean, there's just some things that you don't know until you just jump in. There just really isn't. You're just not going to know everything. I know everyone like wants all these little life hacks, and
Hmm.
but honestly, I think the going through those kinds of things has a lot of value to it. And but that was like that's what I learned really early on is like my work ethic wasn't where it needed to be when I was a 9 to 5. I realized that I had to really improve that, which I did. And I learned how to do what I needed to do. And then, but I did realize that in my roles, there are different roles in running a business. If you're a practitioner, you have that practitioner role, but then you also have your executive and your owner roles. And you got to know all three of those and understand that if you want to have a successful business. So I think really understanding that once you start a business, you're not just a practitioner, you're just not like working this as a job. I also as an owner and I need to know how to be an executive as well. I think that's really key.
Absolutely, man. And I think you made a really important point earlier. And just stating that you help business owners view their practice like an investment.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you can expand a little bit more on that and what you mean behind that or what that statement means to you.
Well, look, I mean, most people that say they have a business, is maybe themselves or one or two other people, but they're doing all the work, right?
Hmm.
That's not really, I mean, I guess you could technically say that's a business, but it's not sustainable because if something happens to you, that's it, right? Game
Yep.
over. Cash flows over with. So you have to start thinking like this thing is an investment. How do I create it so that it can run autonomously without me? And I can have this thing continue to be profitable, sustainable, and then transferable to somebody else at some point in time, because there's other things that I want to do, other endeavors that I want to have. But you have to have that mindset going into it. And a lot of people just can't let go. You got all the control freaks that say, I'm the only one that can do this. And it's like, well, keep doing that. You're going to be trapped. And the value of that business will never be significant enough. I want to create this thing where I have multiple advisors that eventually want to take over at some point in time. and I'm just there kind of directing everything, like a chairman of the board type of thing. And I mean, that's essentially what, I mean, do you think Bill Gates is still programming? Do you think, Jeff Bezos is down in like shipping? He's not doing all that stuff. They're guiding, they're looking at acquisitions and strategic things. And I think everyone should have that mindset of doing that for their business.
Absolutely, man. And I think that's the thing that I appreciate about your company and your business model the most is that I feel like you have a passion and a real interest in learning how businesses work and learning how they operate and learning how to optimize the companies. And it seems like you put yourself in a really good place to be able to look at different businesses, study what different owners do, what
Yep.
makes them tick, and how to make them successful. So then you can, in a sense, take what you learn and apply it to yourself and apply it to other business owners, companies. So I think that's a really great model. But I want to ask, what would you say are some proven methods on creating wealth outside of the practice?
Well, I think it starts with the concept of this. If you own a business, right? I mean, that's one income source,
Hmm.
right? And for the household. And that's, if I ask most business owners, like, where does most of your income come from? They're going to say, well, it comes from my business, right? And I'm like, well, do you want that to be the condition for the rest of your life? And they're like, no, I don't want to be relying on one of anything. I'm like, well, how you gonna expand and develop other income sources? They're like, I don't know. I was like, well, let's start with this. Everyone that owns a business, um, again, you personally, I mean, like, if you own a business, you own it, right? You may have it in like an LLC or something like that, but you're the member, you're the manager of that LLC. Okay. So it's owned at the household level. So then if you want to create other assets and you get that one business really starting to hum and purr, like flowing like the Mississippi, then you want to make sure that a percentage of that revenue is channeled to the household to then use that to generate other income producing assets. So if you got $1 million business or a $2 million business, 10% of that revenue should be paid to the household as a management fee. Okay. However you want to classify it. And then that money should be used not for consumption, not for cars and bigger houses and all that other stuff, but to buy real estate, invest in markets, alternative investments, whatever it is, so that not only are you building your value of your business, but you're creating other assets outside of the business. And that way, when you go to transition out of the business, I'm not just relying upon the sale of this entity to have enough. I got all these other assets because I was smart in planning to begin with, and taking that 10% right off the top. It's not 10% of what you take home, it's 10% of what the business revenue
Mm.
is. It's a really big distinction that
Hmm.
people get wrong all the time. And I set it up like an expense, so it just comes directly from the business checking accounts to a personal, called a wealth storage account. And I've shown people how to recover millions of dollars, because the business will try to eat it up. It will try to spend everything that it makes and then some. So if you don't systematize your profits like that, you will never have any. And that's generally what happens to a lot of business owners. So we try to fix that.
Absolutely, man. And diversification is key. Having these multiple streams of income, that's what I feel like really leads to wealth. Like when you can make money without having to work, when you can make money while you're sleeping, you have
Yeah.
these assets just constantly producing, constantly working for you. I mean, and once you bring that realization to your clients and to these business owners, what response do you typically get once they um, understand what you're saying? Because for most business owners, they don't have time or necessarily the interest um to focus on finances or to lock in or to even figure out how to grow it. So most of the time they're just focused on, like you said, being that practitioner. So once
Yeah.
they come to that realization and that light bulb turns on, what are some of the responses that you hear, the feedback?
Oh, I mean, you get, hey, I never thought I would have this much. I didn't think my business could afford to do this. I finally feel like I'm getting full value out of my business. I feel like I'm actually going to make it. You get the responses of, you don't realize how level of despair a lot of business owners can feel, right? When they feel like their business isn't working for them and they're stuck into it. So to give some people like that level of hope, I mean, that is worth that's worth whatever we have to go through. But most of the time when I tell people that they have to start taking 10% of their gross revenues and start channeling that to their household, I mean, I get, you're crazy. No way I can do it. My office manager and my CPA will go crazy because of this. And I'm like, well, let them. I don't care. That's not my problem. Look, anytime you want to expand, you're going to be met with criticism. You're going to be met
Mhm.
with resistance. You're going to be met with pushback. But if it's something that is for your survival and the benefit of your survival, then it's worth it. So just expect it. I tell that to people all the time. Like, if you're not getting pushback, you're not going hard enough,
Absolutely.
because this universe is designed to push back against you every way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. I feel like, as a business owner myself and having a chance to speak with and talk with a lot of business owners, I feel like it's two important pieces um, that a business owner is looking for when they go to outside counsel or outside help. They're either looking to cut down on expenses, cut down on costs, and save money, or they're looking to make more money. And if you can do both, then I mean it's a win all around for everyone. So, I want to ask and understand more about the approach of reorganizing expenses to gain more control.
Yeah. So I ask a business owner, for example, what your make break number is. Okay. Like, when I say the term make break number, what do you think of when I say that number? Like,
When you say
just,
make break, the first thing that comes to my head is to my mind, make or break.
yeah.
So, how much
Like,
money do you need to make to stay in operation?
exactly, right? So most people are going to say, well, this is how much I need just to stay afloat. Okay. And then I ask them, all right, but you're just giving me the barest bones expenses. You're not accounting for your profits or your reserves as part of that number. Why not? Well, you need those things to stay afloat, don't you? Because you're not going to expand, or you're not going to have money if you don't account for those things. So the first thing that most people get wrong is their make break number. They have the
Mhm.
wrong make break number because they're not accounting for these necessary expenses as part of that. So that's the first thing I do is I go in there and I show them, like, look, you're underestimating how much you need to make to live the life that you want to live, or for your business to stay solvent. Okay. And a lot of people ask, like, what drives revenue for a business? And I remember talking to a guy one day that I thought was really, like, had made like $2-3 million a year. I was like, dude, how do you make so much money? And I thought I was going to get this complex answer of, like, marketing, promotion, whatever it is. You know what he said to me? He goes, because I need it. And I was like, damn. Like, so income comes from necessity, right? Like, Wesley, if I said, I don't know if you have kids or not, but if I said that, to save your mom's life, you're going to need $10,000 by Monday at 10 o'clock, guess what? You're going to come up with the money for that, right? Like, necessity drives income. Nothing else does. Necessity. Okay. So when you look at a business will make what it thinks it needs to make to survive. And if you think you need to make 100,000 a month, then guess what? You're going to make 100,000 a month. But you better hope that you factored in your profits, your reserves, all those things as part of that number. So the first thing that I do is I reorganize what people think as their expenses, and say, you're missing about 4 or 5 different accounts that you need to have set up that are acting like expenses. And part of it, it generally comes out that most people are underestimating their make break number by about 20%, which is a big deal.
It's so interesting to hear you say that, you know, people make money based out of, or people make income based out of necessity,
Yeah.
because you know I've read a lot, and you know, listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of interviews, and it's so crazy because I've heard people say like they'll buy a fancy car, they'll buy a nice watch, and then that will motivate them to keep working harder and to make more money. So like you buy an item, or you have some sort of mindset style in mind, and then some lifestyle in mind, and then you go and try to make your income up to that so you can actually afford that lifestyle. Which, I mean, I don't know, man. To me personally, I'm not a fan of that. I rather I rather have some
You
excess
don't
funds left over, but you know,
you
teach his
don't
own.
need to do that to create a necessity. I don't need an
Exactly.
emergency to create a necessity. Okay.
Exactly.
So I get where people have said that. I got friends that say that too, that
Yeah.
say, go buy a big Lamborghini. You know what I mean? That'll,
Exactly.
you know, go put yourself like $200,000 in debt. And look, you can do that. That will create necessity for you. You don't
Yeah.
need to do that, right? What you need to do is make sure that what the business thinks it needs to make is actually is created as a necessity for the organization, right?
Uh,
And it will make that amount. It's got to try to spend it anyway. But you just have to reorganize these things so that when money gets pulled out, the only way you're ever going to have any kind of surplus is if you physically remove it from the business. Like that's the only way. Okay. Because the business or a household or a government, look at the government. I mean, we have a government that has $30 trillion in debt because they spend everything that comes in and then some. Okay.
mm-hmm.
Every organization will try to do that. That's just a natural law of money. Okay. But you can trick the business by putting in these things that look like they're taken out like expenses, but they're really designed to create reserves so that you can buy other assets and income sources. And that's how you do it. You know, I mean, it's not rocket science. It's just reorganization, how you of the cash flows of the business.
Absolutely, man. And it's a great simplified way to just explain that concept. I mean, and it's simple doesn't always mean easy. It definitely takes discipline
It does.
to use that ideology. But I mean, just from personal experience, man, I've been budgeting every day for the past 5 years of my life, and I've always treated on the personal side. I've always treated um, saving money as an expense. I treated it like a
Yes.
bill, and I
Yeah.
still do to this day. Like I have it I have accounts where my main account is automatically drafted out to go over to investments and to go over to savings. And I feel like that's the only way you really can get ahead, man. I agree
It's
with you
the only way.
1000%.
It's the only way you'll be able to do it. I've tried other ways. That is the only, and it really came down to you have to physically remove money from a
Exactly.
source if you want to create reserves or investment accounts anywhere else. You got to move it. Money is an energy. You just can't
Yep.
let it set static. It's got to move,
Exactly.
right? So when you do that, it functions very well. And I'm telling you, keep that up, man. It'll pay dividends off for you big time.
Absolutely. And you know, that's the crazy part because, you know, working in the financial services industry myself, man, that's something that I realized. And it's so cold the way you put it, that money is like energy and it has to constantly move, because that's what the rich understand.
Mm-hmm.
They know, if I move this amount of money at this certain time, okay, you know, you can use high yield savings accounts right now because the interest rates are so high. So if you just move this money to this account and then you move it here,
Yeah.
it's like a puzzle, man. It's just moving money around at the right time. If you
Yeah.
understand that concept, it will lead to wealth. It will lead to cash flow. But I mean, with that being said, you know, there is a other side to money and to making a lot of money. Most people just um, you know, they have goals of like, okay, I want to make $4 million this year. But you may not think about the downside that comes with making $4 million. if your business isn't set up right or whatever the case may be, you're gonna be taxed on that possibly up to what, 40%.
Yeah.
So, I want to ask you, how can someone protect their assets from lawsuits, taxes, or inflation, or all three?
Okay. Well, let's start with inflation. All right. Now, I mean, man, if you're making 4 million bucks a year, do you really care if the price of milk goes from $3 a gallon to $6 a gallon?
Absolutely not.
You don't care at all. So the best hedge against inflation, it ain't gold, it ain't Bitcoin, it ain't, silver. I mean, those are stores of value, I guess you could say, but it's producing income far and above what you are making right now and what your expenses would be. Okay. And then investing wisely in places that you don't lose money and that create cash. That's the best hedge against inflation. It's having income producing assets. All right. Far and above what you're making right now. That's how you handle inflation. Lawsuits, when it comes to protection of your assets, I think, look, I mean, if you're going to go through the heartache and headache of building 10, 15, $20 million in assets, like, don't you think it's prudent to at least try to protect that stuff? And you can use business entities, you can use different types of insurances. There's state laws that protect certain assets, like in the state of, you live in Nevada, right? So,
Mhm.
certain assets are protected in the state of Nevada based upon their state laws. And then, there's something called debt shields as well, which is like, you have a debt against a apartment building, that there's asset protection there. So it's just, getting all your assets together, using some tools there to protect your assets. And then the last one was taxes. And look, this is where you just have to make sure that you have a good team. You need to make sure that you are in communication with your CPA every single quarter, at least, right? So there's prediction about what you're going to owe. And then there's a tax strategist there on your team that is combing through the tax code and showing you how to minimize your tax liability through legitimate methods of tax avoidance, not tax evasion, tax avoidance. And there's all kinds of things you can do. Right now, I see a lot of people buying real estate so they can use the depreciation of that real estate against their profits of their business right now, which I think is a legitimate strategy. There's there is people that are, if you have enough business profits, you can create like your own insurance company or reinsurance company that you can use to as a risk management approach. There's a lot of strategies out there. You just have to have someone that understands the tax code and understands the tax law, right? Not necessarily what the IRS is saying, because the IRS is going to say this, but the law says this. And most CPAs they just listen to what the IRS says. They don't look at the law, right? So they tell most of their people, well, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, because you're going to get, audited. And it's like, that's not necessarily okay. So what? All right. I'm just going to do what the law says. But that's what I guess the quote unquote rich would say, is that I don't listen to like what the CPAs in fear have to say, because CPAs are there to make sure that your tax returns are filed on time and that you're compliant, right? And their biggest fear is you getting audited. That's their biggest fear. Okay. They're not there to minimize your tax liability.
Right.
But, most of them, I mean, the two things that I've heard most accountants say to minimize your tax liability: put a bunch of money in your retirement plans or buy a bunch of equipment that you may or may not need. That's what most of them say. And okay, that's lazy tax planning. So just make sure you build a good team. And I think that would help, with your tax liability.
Absolutely. You've spoken a lot about, purchasing income producing assets and, basically building up that hedge by uh buying cash flowing assets. So is there a specific asset class or a specific asset that you personally like to invest in and research and kind of live in?
Yeah. So when I look at like the type of business owners that we work with, which are mostly healthcare professionals, I want them to, number one, own the building that they have their business in. I think that would be very important. Okay. So I will try like heck to make sure that they can get ownership of the real estate that they own their business in. All right. And then I have them take 10% of their practice revenue, and then I have that channeled into like I call it just like a regular checking or savings account. um, I mean, right now, if I had cash, I'd be buying T-bills right now because treasury bills are paying 4.7%, 4.6%, which is a hell of a lot more than what you're getting in your checking and your savings account right now. But that being said, then I usually look at three different categories. Number one is other types of real estate. So that could be, I like self-storage, be honest with you. I like self-storage. But you could look at multifamily, you can look at kind of the traditional, income producing assets. The only thing is with that is if you're a busy professional, you don't have time to go out there and find deals and source deals and do all that stuff. So I find operators in those industries that are really good at what they're doing. And that would be like private placement types of real estate that I tend to recommend. I do myself and I recommend to my clients. So I found two that I really like on the self-storage, one on the self-storage side. I can name them Reliant Investments. They do self-storage. They're based out of Atlanta. Atlanta. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, they're in Georgia. But that I do that. Number two, I put a portion of money into insurance-based products, cash value life insurance, and primarily because it's a store of wealth. There's tax protections and there's asset protections to them. And I know that people listening to this, I'm sure annuities, cash value life insurance, that's terrible, that's bad, they're ripoffs. They're really not. Banks own tons of cash value life insurance. They just have to be utilized properly. And then, look, I'm not anti like public securities in the stock market. I just think people have to do it a little bit more intelligently, and they just can't throw all their money into that area. But dividend paying stocks, those kinds of companies that have been around a long time that pay dividends, I think that there's um, or like I said, treasury bills, municipal bonds, especially if you have a lot of wealth. Like I'm not like compartmentalized into it's just like one, but the other ones suck. It's like all three of them have a proven track record of paying yields and dividends. So why not do all three? You know,
Absolutely.
just do them right.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And those life insurance and insurance policies that you talked about, man, I mean, great source of liquidity
Yes.
uh down
Borrowing.
down
Yeah.
the road, exactly, and using it to leverage and build new businesses and make new investments. So I mean, these are all great um great investment opportunities, man. It's something I've been interested in too, is these storage facilities. Uh
Yeah.
that's something I personally like and want to get involved with. But you mentioned something earlier that I think is really important and that I've heard every successful person say, and that's having a mentor, having somebody that is kind of where you want to be and shows you the ropes and shows you the path of how to get to your desired goal and desired destination with like the least amount of roadblocks as possible, I'll say. So I
Yeah.
mean, what were some of the benefits and why was it important for you to find a mentor and to just work with someone uh who had that wisdom and experience?
Yeah, I think, and I'm kind of torn on it because I'm still not 100% sure that that's what I needed. But
Mhm.
I will say that, in the beginning stages, it was one of those, this guy knows more than me, and he certainly talks like, and I want to learn from that because some of the things that he's saying are really important. And but you still have to kind of stick to your own path, your own righteous path, and you still have to stick to your own integrity and stick to your own ethics and those kinds of things. And I think a mentor that is in alignment with those things already is important. But you really, at some point in time, you're going to break from your mentor. I mean, I forget the saying, the student overcomes the master at some point in time. and you are going to have to get your show on the road. Um, I mean, I think there's value in giving you certainty, and there's value in giving you guidance, but yeah, I don't know, man. I'm still not like I think it's valuable to like find someone that has done it successfully. But I hear a lot of people say you never take advice from people that have less than you. I've heard that too, or never take advice from someone that doesn't have more money than you. And I don't think that's correct at all. I don't think that's correct. But anyway, I don't know. I'm still kind of torn on that.
Yeah, man, I don't agree with that statement either. Like, don't take advice from somebody that has more, that does not, or that has less than you. Because I feel like you can learn from anybody, any
If you're
age and
willing,
any stage in life. Yeah, you can learn from every situation, every person that you come across.
there's
You
a
know,
there's a really popular I don't know, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach. Okay. This guy's never won a match. He's never won a title. He's never won anything like that. Right. But everyone goes to him because he knows that game. Right.
hmm
So just because someone has more money than you, or they have a bigger business than you, or they have less than what you currently have, it doesn't mean that they don't have something valuable to give to
exactly.
you. I hate that when people say that. So that's
Yeah, nah, man, me too, man. And it's funny that you mentioned Brazilian jiu-jitsu because I've been watching a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts here
yeah,
lately.
yeah,
And he talks about Brazilian jiu-jitsu all the time. So now I'm kind of interested in learning more about it myself. But
yeah.
um, I want to ask, what have been some of the most effective ways that you've gained new clients? In the industry, in the field like that you're in, I can imagine that word of mouth is really one of the main drivers. But I want to hear from you. Like, what have been some strategies that you used, if any, or like, is it all word of mouth?
No, I mean it. Look, this is a something that's still in progress, right? But because we decided to focus on a niche, that kind of narrows down that community. And these industries, I mean, like veterinarians like other veterinarians, and they trust other veterinarians, right? Physical therapists trust other physical therapists. Dentists trust other dentists. So, I got in these communities. We first started by working with like consultants in these industries. So the first thing we did is we found other consultants that were in these industries that had these people as clients that I wanted as clients, and we said, hey, look, we'll teach your people about finances. We'll create a course for them. You can sell it to them. Keep all the money. I just want the lead, right? And that was one of the things that we started off with doing. But then that had a shelf life because I didn't want to be reliant upon other people just doing that. So then we started getting into more of like the social media advertising, going direct, going to shows, and really, getting clients, most importantly, getting clients to then refer to us and
hmm
getting us in front of their tribe, so to speak. So it's something that is continual, it's something that will continue to kind of cultivate. But I think being a person of trust in that industry, like I would say, like in the physical therapy industry, people would say, if they heard my name, Eric, oh yeah, he's a financial advisor for physical therapists. He's a guy that knows what he's talking about. So I think it takes time, but you can certainly develop trust in these industries because the people do talk to each other.
Absolutely, man. And I think that was really a genius business model, man. Just going to the consultants because they're like the source. So they're the
Yeah.
main point person. They're the source of that industry or of that world, and the people already look to them. So that's genius. But then offering them value beyond just saying, "Hey, share your customers with me."
Yeah.
You're bringing that monetary value to them, like, "Hey, we have this course. You can sell it. You can keep all the money." Like that. That's the genius part. Like that's where you bring in the real value. Like, you're not just asking for something, but you're also presenting them with something as well.
You got to keep the exchange in. Like you just can't ask
Exactly.
someone to say refer me because we'll take care of your clients. I mean, I learned early on that the people don't this that they definitely want some kind of, because it takes, man, it's hard to acquire clients, you
Yeah,
know. I mean, especially in the world of finances where people don't trust anybody,
absolutely.
you know, they just don't trust anybody.
Absolutely, man. So what would you say are some of the roadblocks or lessons that you've learned early on, or that you've learned throughout your entrepreneurship journey?
Oh man. Um, Look, if you own a business, you got to make sure that you constantly establish the culture, the vision of the business. That's something that is your role as an owner. Uh, and that, keeping toxicity out of the business is really important. Like if you want to see your revenue jump 20-30%, just get rid of that person that in your organization is not there to enhance the organization. I think that's definitely a key. Inspecting your environment for those types of people. Gosh, what else, man? I'm sure there's some other things that I could think of. You got to pay attention to your finances. Like I use this analogy quite a bit. If you have kids, you take your attention off your kids for like 2 seconds and you have no idea where they're going to be, you know. But your money's just like that. You take your attention off your money for just a matter of, a week or two, and you have no idea what you'll be surprised where it goes. It tends to go everywhere. So definitely paying attention, and then know your roles in the business. I think that's another one. Like, know what you're always going to be an owner, but you can kind of choose whether or not you want to be practitioner, or you want to be more an executive, and just find out where your skills are, and then make sure you hire that leadership team that can really help run the business at some point in time. I mean, you can, there's other things you have to do. You got to make sure you keep, statistics and measurements and all those things, but that's more of tactics. I think having a real strong strategy is important.
What's the importance of having a good team, and how did you focus on building yours?
Well, first it came, I didn't want to talk to clients for the rest of my life because I knew, like, all right, I can do this, but I'm never going to be able to grow something that has any value to it. So then I had to write up my hat, all the successful actions that I had as an advisor, and then make sure that the new advisors had the same success that I had. And then I had to start picking individuals in the organization that, and it takes a lot. I mean, look, I mean, it's like 1 in 18 people before you find a real gem of a leader. That seems to be like the number of people you got to go through to find a real good leader. But once you find that really good leader, then man, make sure you pay them whatever you can to keep that person tied to you. Is really, really important. So it's one of those things that I think is, as we've grown the business, we've just kind of like, that guy is someone that can organize. People respect him. He can coordinate. He can solve problems. He's going to be a leader, and I'm going to make him a leader, and I'm going to tie him in to the profit, and I'm going to pay him, more than what probably other people would pay him, because those kinds of individuals are extremely valuable. So we're still building that leadership team right now, but I think, as time morphs on, we'll continue to build that layer. You don't need a lot of them, maybe 3 or 4 of them. That's it, that can run, hundreds and hundreds of people.
How do you define success as an entrepreneur and as a business owner?
I used to think it was more money, but I think it was, for me, it's just getting to our capacity. Like my first, what I'll define success right now is like when I have like 10, advisors, and we're servicing like over 1,000 clients, and it's just getting results from our clients, being well known, and being a source, someone looks at and says, yeah, these guys are trustworthy, especially in the financial world. I'll define that as success when I see that. And then when I have ultimately the time to be able to go do other expansion activities, then I'll probably say, you know what, we've reached a level of success that I think is pretty good. Like, how many businesses are actually doing like $10 million in revenue, small businesses? It's not very much. It's probably like 1%. So when I get to that level, I'll feel like, okay, that's a level of success that I think is pretty good, you know, just to have a target there.
How would you like for people to remember you as well as this company that you've built?
Well, again, I think it would be as someone that created a positive effect, someone that it was looked at as an innovator in some respect. And I would like to change the way people view financial advisors, because right now I don't think there's a very positive view of financial advisors. That'll be kind of a next phase, in that I want to change the way that people look at financial advisors. Because right now I think they just look at them as like, all these people do is just ask for money and charge a fee to manage money, and that's it. And that's not really what I think a financial advisor should be doing. So at some point, I'd like to change that persona. They became like used car salesmen pretty fast.
Yeah, and I feel like it's that way for the population of people who don't use them or haven't been paired with the good one.
Yeah, there's
Like,
definitely good ones and there's bad ones.
yeah, absolutely. And then it's like if you've never been next to one or never sat down with one, then it's easy to think like, oh man, okay, these people are a certain type of way, but
He's gonna ask me to buy a product, right?
exactly,
And
exactly.
that's the thing, that most advisors are not really doing planning and management activities and those kinds of
Yep,
things. They're just selling products.
yep,
Let's
exactly.
see how fast I can sell you an insurance policy. Let's see how fast I can sell you an investment account or a retirement account. That's not really what a financial advisor should do.
What does the future of Econologics Financial Advisors look like to you? I mean,
And what time frame?
man, I'll say the next 5 years. But
Yeah.
well, no, you know what? Let me take that back. You said that you will feel the goal is to bring in $10 million worth of revenue. How do you plan to reach that goal? How do you plan to scale up to that level?
Yeah, it's going to be through continued client acquisition, building a layer of leadership so I can do more promotional activities, and it's continuing to train advisors that are getting real results with our clients, and spending time with them. I don't have a model where our advisors are saying, hey, we'll talk once or twice a year and do a portfolio review. It's not like that. Our service model is like, I'm like in your face. Our advisors are in your face all the time. Are you doing this? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? And then that way I know that we're going to get better results. And I think if we do that, then I should be able to hit that target within the next couple of years.
Eric Miller, man, this has been incredible. I've enjoyed our conversation, man, and I enjoy how you break things down and make it seem like, man, this is possible for anyone to do and for anyone to accomplish, whether it's on the business side or the personal side of finance. So thank you for sharing this knowledge and information with us, man. And I really appreciate it getting a chance to sit down and talk with you and pick your brain.
I love it, man. I'm going to send you a free book too. I just wrote a book, How to Become a Financial Beast. So I need to make sure I get all your mailing address before we leave.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait to read it. Thank you, Eric.
Yep.